let me tell you something, folks. It is a very difficult job to be Speaker of the House. A lot of people say they would like to be Speaker of the House. Let me tell you, there's only a handful of people that will usually ever put their names forward. And why is that? It can become a very thankless job. You've got to weigh a lot of different decisions, especially when you're talking about the government shutting down and how that can affect an incoming Republican president. You want to make sure that we are doing everything we can in these first 100 days to get as much of the Trump a new agenda done legislatively, get that moving as fast as possible. We have 2 years where we have slim majorities in the House and the Senate that are Republican and a Republican president. They are pretty in line in the U.S. House, I have to say, though they sometimes differ on a few smaller items on the big items. But we've got to really work in the Senate to make sure we get across, with the 51 votes, and J.D. Vance can assist with that matter. But we've got to have a Speaker of the House who will fight with the Senate leaders to make sure we get the most conservative legislation possible that we can support, that President Trump is asking for. And that is why I believe President Trump has said, you know what, we shouldn't do these crazy fights to undermine the strength of the speaker. We need a speaker who is willing to take the hits. Mike Johnson is willing to do that for the American people, for his fellow members of Congress. And remember, he's one of us. I think a lot of times you forget that when they become speaker after a while, you forget where they came from. He is not this lifelong politician who he thought, all I want to do is I want to make my way to speaker and I want to become this national major leader where I've got to, negotiate budgets with the president of the United States. He's a religious liberty guy, a free speech guy. He was an attorney, just like so many of us at the ACLJ. That's what he spent his life doing until he ran for Congress. And again, he's, I think, stepped into the shoes of a major position where a lot of people thought he would not last very long. I remember in a meeting with a senator, we went around the room and said, what's the biggest prediction you can make that right now seems like it would be unlikely? And it was that Speaker Johnson would last a year. Well, now we're talking about a lot more than a year, and he's got President Trump's endorsement. What I want to know from you at 1-800-684-3110 is how important is that endorsement? I'll tell you, Will, why I think it's important. If you voted for President Trump, you want the speaker to be the person he wants to deal with. You don't want to put a speaker in that the president doesn't like to work with, or that is an attack dog against the president. Like he's not doing enough. He's not conservative enough on every single issue. We know President Trump is unique. That's why he's brought more people to the party. That's why he won the way he did against Harris. And look at the fear he put into the Democrats by taking out Joe Biden from the race. And now we're hearing those articles about Joe Biden wishing he was still in the race. But, Will, I think that has to be known. And yes, he's a friend of ours. I'll say that right off the bat. But if you're an ACLJ supporter, how great is that the few of us at the top of the ACLJ can go right to Speaker Johnson if we ever need to. Our government affairs team works with his team very closely on all of the issues that you care about. And we've been able to expand the issues we work on, Will. So I think, again, this endorsement should matter a lot if you voted for President Trump, because you want his guy in as Speaker of the House. The Senate is tougher. So we've got to have a united House that will then go into the Senate and make sure we get the best legislation done in this period of time that you only usually get for a couple of years in your presidency, if you ever get it, which is a united Republican Party front in Washington, D.C., with every branch of government, whether it's the legislative branch, the executive branch, and of course the judicial nominees. All of that that will be so important as well. And so I think, Will, it should carry a lot of weight, even if you were someone on the line maybe yesterday thinking about maybe someone else should take that role on. President Trump has said, this is the guy I want to work with. And I think by that statement alone, if you're someone who got elected because you told people you were going to support President Trump, how on earth do you get in there and then say, you know what, I support President Trump, but I want to pick someone that he doesn't want for Speaker of the House?
That's right, Jordan. And I know that a lot of people were concerned when the spending fight here at the end of the year started to bubble up in Congress, and the original package that was kind of brokered to go forward was shot down pretty quickly by President Trump and Elon Musk and those like saying, hey, this isn't really the agenda we're putting forward. And so that's when a lot of people started to say, Mike Johnson is a rhino. Mike Johnson, he's not actually on our team because of this omnibus spending package that was only for 3 months to avert a crisis at the beginning of a Trump presidency. And my take on this, and I want to get yours as well, is that one, I think it also showed that as soon as President Trump, who is not president yet, so would not have signed that bill, said, this isn't the fight or the way that we want to start off. What did they do? They pulled the bill and didn't vote on it. And they ended up coming up with a different plan. I think that one shows you that Mike Johnson is willing to listen to the president to put forward what the fight will be. The other side of that is that the Republican caucus right now is still almost a European-style parliamentary coalition, because there's still some hardline, old-school Republicans that don't really represent what make up the party today. You have the Freedom Caucus, you have the War Hawks, you have a bunch of different Republicans that come together and that Speaker Johnson has to corral into some sort of coalition that can move forward an agenda. I think Mike Johnson was trying to get ahead of a fight early by putting something that would be a 3-month spending package that didn't end up getting signed, but knowing that, one, it had to get through the Senate, which is still controlled by Democrats today, and a president that is also a Democrat. So therefore, he had to play the Washington political game to get something to go forward so that he didn't trigger a crisis before President Trump even got into office and then stalled the agenda forward. Now, something better came out of that, but I honestly think that Mike Johnson is savvy enough to know that he's trying to not place landmines in the path of President Trump's agenda before he even takes office. And so what many people think was a rhino move, I think was actually him trying to shield President Trump from a big disaster before he even gets there. I'd like to get your thoughts on that too, Jordan.
No, absolutely. I think that, listen, the speaker's job and the job of the Republican Party, if you are not the president, from the vice president down, if you support what the president is doing, if you believe he is the leader that you supported and you want to get his agenda through, what do you need to do? You need to make it as easy as possible. And that means take as many of the hits for him as possible so that by the time the legislation gets to him, he can sign it with widespread Republican support and widespread support, not just from Republicans in the country, but the American people. Because remember, these big legislative issues, we have to not only pass, but then we have to actually go out into the congressional districts. President Trump has to address the nation, go out into the country, and tell them why this is the best way forward, why we need this legislation, why it was worth a major reform.